Sunny bonani dumalang, goeie afternoon, bon dia. Trust that you are well, swell, and doing great. Welcome to episode 32. If you caught yesterday's episode, it was all things alternate lives, past lives. And I would like to share perhaps two more recalls or memories that I have that are very vivid and that I experienced. They came to me, I'd say, 2 decades ago. So the fact that I can still remember them so clearly is clearly a testament to there's more in it than just my imagination. And also maybe just touch on this topic of alternate lives, or as some people call them, past lives. So I personally don't call them past lives, even though I can understand the thinking behind that. But for me, the construct of time is not one as it is here on this earthly plane or in this earthly realm as we know it in this here now moment. If you subscribe to and understand the energetics of the universe, you know that time is just a construct. So yes, I guess I like to view past lives as alternate lives, which are currently residing and existing in another sphere, plane, dimension of existence. And like I shared yesterday, I know that there are lots of people who would say that it's blasphemous to think of us having alternate lives. This is our only life and all those kind of things. And I just struggle to subscribe to that philosophy in such a huge, massive universe, multiverses. I mean, we're not even just talking about one universe, we're talking about multiverses. And there's so many galaxies with so many star systems and planets. It's like the comprehension is just incomprehensible, is what I think. So I am open to many thoughts and trails of thinking, such as alternate lives or past lives. So in the sentiments of that being shared, let me perhaps chat about two more of my lives that arose for those who are curious. And maybe it might tweak curiosity or interest, or have you thinking about some of your alternate lives that you may be leading and living and breathing in other time-space dimensions. So yesterday I shared a story around the findings that I guess came to me that gave me greater insight and revelation into my dislike for sugar. So I have an aversion towards sugar, true story. And yesterday's episode, I shared where that kind of stemmed from, at least maybe just a touch of it or an inkling into the psyche behind my dislike for sugar. And I also shared how in that particular life, I passed away completely on my own, surrounded only by engulfing fire and obviously smoke inhalation is how I kick the bucket, as they say. And today's story, or the life that I'd like to reveal today, is one that is very different. It's almost like juxtaposition, very different experience. And that's how I experienced it when I did this regression process 2 decades ago now. I first had the experience of the one that I shared yesterday, and then I went immediately straight into this one, which I'm going to share with you today. And then I'm going to touch on the final recall that I had in terms of the memory of the dimension and space and place that I had right after experiencing this experience, of which I believe was in South America. But of course, I'm not 100% certain. It's just something that I innately felt. And based on what I saw, I would gather that it was South America. I'm not even quite sure on the year, but it was a time and an era where it almost felt very, very tribal. Not to say that there aren't tribes residing in many South American parts of the Amazon and the jungle. That is still a reality today. But I felt it was very long ago, if we can use the construct of time in that sense. And I remember that I was responsible for making jewelry from stones and shells and pretty much anything and everything that we could find or resource from nature. And I remember that I was never alone. We were always surrounded by a group of women, and we always used to commune together, find these materials together, create these beautiful pieces of jewelry together. And it was just such a calm and serene and joyful life. Very different from the one I shared in yesterday's episode, which was so interesting for me when I was going through this process, because I could viscerally, within my physical being and body, feel the sensations of calm and ease and grace and community and love and togetherness and Ubuntu, as they say in South Africa, in relation and in comparison to the duality that I was experiencing in the previous life, which was completely alone, feeling very restricted, feeling controlled, and almost like something was like domineering or kind of watching over me, something like that kind of feeling. So yeah, this was just such a different experience, and I could viscerally feel it in my body. And I remember that I passed away an old, old, old gogo, old lady, old granny. What other words do we have for granny? Avar, old. And I remember being completely surrounded by these beautiful flowers in it wasn't even a casket, it was, I guess, like a bed, and just surrounded by all these flowers. And they knew that I was passing, and they were preparing for my passing. And I remember it very vividly. And just the whole community being there, and there being singing and dancing. And it was just the most amazingly beautiful experience. And I remember transitioning over into that life, feeling so loved, so embraced by life, and so connected to the people around me and the elements, and just so yummy, you know. And that's when it really dawned on me and that's when I really started to completely subscribe and believe to this notion of how the soul seeks and hungers to experience as many lives as possible, so that it can experience and envelop as many emotions and states and aspects and elements of duality. You know, for so long I subscribed to the whole light and love. Oh, just got to be happy, optimistic, and just got to be smiling all the time. Even if my dad's died, it's okay, because he's moved on to a better place in space. Wow, guys, no, that made me the saddest person ever. It really made me so sad that I actually started to get sick and ill. And it ultimately led to me changing my entire life, so much so that the friends that I had then were no longer the friends. I don't even have many friends right now. If you've caught my episode with my pooch, or my dog is my best and only friend, That's my friend at the moment. But friendship for another day. Let's get back to the essence of today. But yes, it really, really made me realize how important understanding that aspect of duality is. And, you know, as much as we always want to be happy and uplifted and shining in the sun, you know, we can't be there all the time. I mean, what happens if we go out into the sun, especially now where I am, it's summertime and it's February and it is the hottest of time of the year. Humidity's at 90, heat's at 30. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but put those two together and you got a sweaty combo. If you saw yesterday's episode, you saw I was touching my face all the time. It's because I literally had sweat dripping down my face. Okay. So just like we can't be in the sun all the time because we'll literally get singed. We will burn up. We can't be happy all the time because then we don't truly understand the essence and the nuance and the beauty and connect with that emotional je ne sais quoi that comes from joy and happiness. Unless we understand the complete counter opposite, sadness, going down into the darkness, feeling those feelings of depression, sadness. What else should we put there? Guilt, fear. You know? All those denser, darker, or stagnant emotions that we so often shun and shame and are so afraid of. It's almost like the tokolosh. There's a little character in South Africa that's known amongst the tribal community here as the tokolosh. And it's this tiny little man that comes in the middle of the night and he does horrendous things to you. And he's so short. So many people put their beds up on bricks so that this little tokolosh can't get you. So that's kind of like how I feel many of us operate in life, right? We go through life needing to put our life on bricks, make us seem taller and better and happier than we are, just so that, you know, we can avoid the uncomfortableness that comes with sadness and sorrow and fear and anger and pain and all those horrible emotions. But unless we're able to feel all those denser, darker, more shadowy aspects of ourselves, we can't truly appreciate the true essence of the light, can we? Because there's no real form of comparison. How do you know what joy is unless you've experienced sadness? Very hard, right? So I guess that's why I believe that we go through this experience of not only having one human life. I mean, a human life is over in just like you blink and it's gone, right? You're born, day one, and then the next thing you know, you're a gogo, you're a tata, you're a vava, you're a granny, if you're able and blessed enough to make it that long. So I really do believe that as souls, we come here to experience as much as we can possibly experience, because ultimately, aren't we all forms or essences of God? And God created us so that God could experience itself, herself, himself, topic for another day, itself, in as many fractals and as many ways as possible. And just think about that for a moment. It means God may want to even experience those denser, darker, more stagnant emotions. So perhaps we should perhaps we should stop giving good old, this guy, so much credit. You know what I mean? Give him a lot of credit. Not to say that there isn't any truth to this guy, but sometimes we also need to perhaps take a step back and look at it from a different perspective as well, and stop blaming everything on outsourcing things to other entities and dimensions, and perhaps start taking accountability for ourselves, even in that domain. So we went on a bit of a left detour there. So let's bring it back to my past life, right? So yes, the aspect of duality and all these things that we come to experience, and this experience definitely illuminated and made me embody this feeling, and made me believe that we are here more than in one go. You know, we come to take on the form of many avatars, so we can have many different experiences. But our soul essence and the magic of who we are remains the same. The experiences we come to experience is what shifts and alters, and how we adjust and what we do with those experiences through our creative nature is, I guess, where the magic really lies. So I just want to tap on to another past life, which was very different from these two that I've already discussed, the one from yesterday's episode and the one which I've just shared with you now, in terms of me being in South America and dying an old lady. So the next life that I recall going into, and I don't even know if this is the way it really happened in the sequence, but something intuitively and innately within me tells me that it was. So this third memory or life that I recall having wasn't even on planet Earth. So the previous two were, and this third one wasn't even in this freaking, in our solar system. Definitely not. Okay. And please, as I'm sharing this, I'd just like to let you know that I experienced this memory before the likes of the movie Avatar was even created, the very first Avatar. It was before that time. This movie hadn't even been made, launched, nothing, okay? So I had no recollection, or I wasn't influenced by those scenes in the movie to help inform my imagination in this experience. Just a caveat, which makes this even more mind-blowing for me. Okay. So this third life, in another time, in another space, in another galaxy, in our multiverse, was, I remember being like an entity, like a tree. I remember being a living, breathing, like tree, rooting into the earth. And I remember that I was there because I was almost like replenishing or recharging myself from all the experiences and lives that I had on earth. And I remember very, very distinctly that I was on this particular planet in this particular form to heal myself and to recuperate and regenerate my essence and being. And I remember very, very distinctly that there were other beings on this planet, not humans, but as they walked, and this is what blew my mind when I did watch Avatar, I remember in my imaginative memory that as these beings were walking along the floor, they were being illuminated. Like the mycelium network beneath it was just like radiating and pulsating everywhere they stepped, and everything was connected to everything, and we were all in sync and aligned and in complete reverence for the balance that was in this place. Everything was just so peaceful, so tranquil, so equanimous, and so just, yes, like Eden, perfection. You could almost hear the angels singing in the back. Oh, but no, that didn't happen. I'm just saying it was like that feeling. And I just remember how I felt being there. And it was so difficult to actually want to leave that place, to be honest with you. So when Avatar arrived and I saw that scene where I think it's Sully and I can't remember who becomes his wife, when they're walking on the forest bed and it starts to light up and the tree of YWAY comes with all those guys, that's pretty much what I saw. And I was like, holy shit. If you can imagine it, it exists. I don't care what anybody tells me. If there's anything that someone has imagined, it's because it exists somewhere, someplace, in some dimension, in some world. It's there. Okay. Has to. Fairies, gargoyles. I don't know, put the Yeti in there, guys. It's got to exist somewhere. Mermaids. I mean, so many of them exist on planet Earth. We just can't see them because, we've been so brainwashed to believe that it's all just mumbo jumbo. But time will reveal the magic. Time will reveal the magic when we are willing to wave the wand and step into our essence and stop denying the magic that is our beings. Then perhaps these revelations will become more known and more accepted to more humans on this planet. So yes, I just was called to share those little stories of my regression and alternate lives, which I have personally experienced. And I guess the key reason for me wanting to do that is to remind us of the duality that is life. We're very quick to point fingers at people, and I say this as I'm speaking to myself as I say this. And it doesn't mean that you accept and tolerate, experiences that have hurt you or people that have hurt you, or doesn't mean you tolerate it, but perhaps you can observe it from a different lens and perhaps observe it from a different perspective. I always think to myself, I am a mom, and I would definitely hope and think that I never become a murderer. I mean, wow, of course not. Not the kind of person I am, you know what I mean? However, that script can change very quickly, can't it? If for some reason something had to happen where I felt I needed to protect myself or protect my kids, that title might come into my awareness and it may become a reality. So I've become so aware of the labels we give ourselves and the labels we give others. And I would also just like to take this time to invite you to perhaps think about and approach life with greater curiosity and less judgment. It doesn't mean we tolerate behaviors that are definitely of harm to us and that don't make us feel good about ourselves and are counterintuitive to what we know our essence and our soul being is seeking, desiring, and wanting. But in the same breath, we need to acknowledge and remind ourselves that there is a part of ourselves in every single person, and every single person, there's a part of them in us, because we're all connected and we're all coming from the same source, right? And as important as it is to always turn our heads towards the light and the sun, it's become very apparent to me that it's equally important for us to turn our attention and our awareness towards darkness. It doesn't mean that we reside there and we stay there, but there definitely needs to be an acknowledgement of its existence and an acknowledgement of its importance and its power. What we do with that information is what matters. And what we do with that information in our living lives is ultimately what we are here to experience. So the tree can't grow up towards the sun if the roots don't reach down into the depths of the soil. And just take a moment in this here now present minute to just reflect on some of those challenges that have come into your life. I guarantee you that you'll be able to think about those hard times and those challenges far easier than the easier ones. But more importantly, I would like you to contemplate on the impact that those shadowy moments or those dark moments in your life have created. What have they brought into fruition because of you needing to put your roots down into the depths of the soil? Very uncomfortable, right? It's murky, it's dark, it's cold. You've got to push down into the dark, dirty soil and earth. Sometimes there's shit and manure in there. But unless you do that, you're not able to break above the soil and reach towards the lights. And the stronger your roots, the stronger the trunk, the branches, the leaves, and your fruit. So, yes, in the spirit of embracing duality and offering you some contemplative food for thought in today's episode and my sharing, I, as always, would love to remind you to continue to sow those seeds, allow for the flow and magic of life to find you so that you can continue to grow, illuminate, and glow. Stay magical until our episode tomorrow, 33. Peace out.